with the latest push for everybody to kind of go e-commerce in some way, shape, or form, Shopify has blasted off into becoming a very normal thing that I've seen for a lot of small businesses to start implementing. Whether it's, WooCommerce from WordPress angle or Shopify, which is kind of the go-to if you're starting a storefront from scratch, right? So they have all these different packages and plans, and people really don't know the difference and are kind of confused about even starting there. But what I'll tell you about Shopify is that out of the box, it is just solving the problem of e-commerce, where it's just 10 years ago, to get up and running on the kind of tools that Shopify provides to you, like out of the box, would have cost 10 times what it's costing right now, maybe even 100 times more than it's costing right now. Like, they really have solved all of those initial problems. Now, the problem with Shopify is that, like anything else, people aren't tech savvy generally, and they want things where they want things, and they want things to function the way they want them to function, and they just can't get it right on their own. They just don't understand. What you don't understand, or what is maybe hard to understand, is that every inch of Shopify can be customized. Okay, it really can. Like, I've seen some pretty cool customizations being added right in. Like, I'm talking about adding your own form fields to make things happen internally, things that can happen to products and displays and variants and product images, and like literally every single thing on the screen can be customized to your liking. Now, again, and I just had this discussion about budget. Shopify modification and kind of the coveted skill set of that, modification, is expensive. Okay, agencies doing this kind of work, you can look to spend anywhere from $100 to $250 an hour to get it the way you need it to be. So you have to be very specific about your needs, and you have to be willing to compromise in some way. Okay, like there's a for instance of something that I needed to have happen, which was just having multiple collections on a page. And if you go search Shopify multiple collections on a page, you'll just get stuck in like all these different forums and support things and code and kind of developers communicating in some kind of developer language that no one else understands. But there's a way to fix the problem. Okay. And you just have to know how to go about it. You have to know the right developer to go to. And what you're asking for is another thing. Like, I think a lot of business owners have an inability to understand the functionality that they're seeking, and they don't have the ability to output what they're trying to have happen to a person who can actually make it happen. So I am a good person to come between a shop owner or a store owner and the development team that can execute any of the things that you want to have happen. Okay. Again, budgets must be understood that it's going to be pricey to customize Shopify to exactly the way that you want it. Now, what a lot of people might end up doing is relying on the Shopify App Store to buy functionality that doesn't exist. And obviously, those paid plugins are there for a reason. They attach to Shopify. They're going to be the functionality in most cases that you're going to want to have. Also, in most cases, those apps can also be customized further to your liking or integrated in different ways outside of like what you see as the default installation for things. Like, nothing is set in stone when it comes to Shopify, okay, except for that kind of core functionality. But there are plugins, add-ons, code modifications, design modifications that can undo any of the limitations, okay? The only thing separating you from getting all of those things accomplished is budgets. Now, I'm talking about, like, I asked for something on this installation that I had been working on for a year. I asked for something which I thought was, in my mind, simple. Okay, this was me not knowing the Shopify platform and not knowing, how the agencies kind of go about pricing stuff and the change modifications and changes to the scope of work. And you got to be careful with those Shopify agencies, because they will hammer you if you're not paying attention. Now, so something that I thought was very simple, and I don't need to disclose like the specifics of what I thought simplicity was, right? $40,000 for this modification. Okay, you could solve that problem probably for a lot less, but in most cases you have to compromise. You're going to say, okay, I want this, and this is what I want, and you present that to the agency, and they come back with some $40,000 price tag. You're like, whoa, man, didn't think it was going to be like that. Is it really that extensive? Also, the problem with a lot of people is that they can't look at the scope of work that's provided by an agency and say, oh yeah, well I get it. That's going to take this much time and I understand how much this is going to take. So it wouldn't hurt to have someone like me take a look at the scope of work and kind of call the agency on some stuff. Because I called several agencies on lots of line items that they were just kind of throwing in there to kind of buff up the price a little bit. And it's just, if you're not careful, if you're not paying attention, you will just get annihilated. Your budget will get hammered, and in most cases it's not necessary. It's not worth it. Okay? So if you need some help with some Shopify insight, and I went through a very extensive migration of Magento 1 store to Shopify Plus. Okay, Shopify Plus being the enterprise version of Shopify. I currently have experience with every version of Shopify and the limitations of each. And, for the most part, I'd say most businesses can get going with the second package, but I like Shopify Advanced, and Shopify Plus is where I kind of gravitate to, okay? For a lot of reasons that I can tell you about, and I'd be happy to. But if you're just looking to sell a product or two and you just want to get going and, you just need to be up and running and you're not going to be that concerned about modifications and design and all this other stuff that can cause budgets to go cuckoo, just start with the basic, easy to go with Shopify $30 a month thing and just see how it works out. Every single time you, need to increase functionality or you need to add staff members, you need to, expand out your Shopify subscription, you just literally have to pay for the next tier and then you just get the new functionality. Just because you've started with something small doesn't mean that you're locked into that. You can continue to grow with Shopify. In fact, they like that. They like to continually upsell you on the getting the better package cycle. So that ultimately you land at Shopify Plus, which starts at $2,000 a month. But again, if you're not in an enterprise situation or, a product with a staff and team of people kind of working on it, chances are Shopify Plus is going to be beyond you. But, advanced version of it probably solved the problem for most companies. Again, I have a lot of insight. I had made plenty of mistakes and assumptions that were just completely wrong. And I was basing it on what I know about WordPress and how WordPress plugins, work. And, there was a lot of things that I had just assumed that were definitely not right as far as pricing goes. I got a brutal education. And so before you have to get that brutal education, maybe I can help you, make a path or plan out and plot out what it is that you need. And again, I can get into your installation and look at some of the apps that you've chosen to use. And maybe even in your current installation, you have like $200 a month in like random apps that you thought you needed along the way and you just kept adding on to your subscription. Probably, chances are you can probably take out many of those and replace them. New functionality is happening all the time within Shopify. New functionality that makes those apps and plugins obsolete. So you don't need to keep them probably in many cases. Like, for instance, like page builders. Well, Shopify is going to implement a page builder so that you can kind of place things more where you want them rather than relying on code or default themes, which are nearly impossible. Paid kind of pre-made fabricated themes, which are nearly impossible to move around. Same with getting a custom theme created. Like you need to know how to code and get in CSS and the liquid files and all this other stuff. So if you're not comfortable in code and if you're not comfortable, getting into the back end of, the admin panel and manipulating that stuff, then again, it may be something that you want another opinion on. Give me a call, Michael Baker Digital. I'm going to do a lot more Shopify videos, very specific stuff. I've gotten very deep into it. I'm on year 2. And it's a really cool ride. It's really amazing to watch this kind of ability for all these small businesses to kind of, harness the power of e-commerce and how quickly the world has adopted e-commerce as a complete and total norm. Shopify is the way to go if you're kind of starting from scratch. WooCommerce is a very good option for certain people. If you're already involved in WordPress and you have an established website, you have a certain amount of products, a little custom situation, WooCommerce can work out great. In my opinion, there's only 2 players, Shopify, WooCommerce with WordPress. Outside of that, I wouldn't look further for establishing your own storefront. Need help? Give me a call, Michael Baker Digital. Good luck.